Hey guys, welcome to the Exit Plan podcast. In today's episode, we got Jed Morris. Jed Morris is basically a Jedi of M&A, if you will. He's been in the industry, done so many deals. Jed, could you introduce yourself to the public, please?
Sure. Hey, thanks for having me. Like you said, my name is Jed Morris. I'm the managing partner of Sunset Coast Partners, which is an independent sponsor firm currently searching for defense businesses, especially in manufacturing and in software. Right now, also in aerospace, which is a little
Wow.
bit of a side tangent. But yeah, before that, I was an Air Force veteran for 10 years, almost entirely in financial management. Got out in 2019, did my MBA at NYU Stern, and then moved into tech. So I worked at Microsoft for a couple years, building the cloud for government customers. Led a couple software teams at AWS and at HP, but really had the ETA bug. Long before it was cool, before there were influencers, before people thought this was a fun thing to do online. Um,
Right.
so. Yeah, I did a self-funded search, kind of figured it out as I went along. Luckily, the community is much bigger now than it was then, but there was still a
Mhm.
lot of really great people there at the time, and I did about a 2-year search. Ultimately, bought a couple landscaping companies in Southern California. Uh, Things went well for a few months until they went really bad, and those businesses went bankrupt in June of 2024. And then
Wow.
since then, kind of picked myself back up, launched my new firm, and I spent a lot of time speaking to uh, business buyers who have bought a business within the last 5 years and experienced a failure to try to get those
Mhm.
lessons learned and get them out there so that first time searchers don't make the same mistakes, because with failure comes a lot of wisdom.
Hey, I love it, man. You got battle scars, you know. You got that military look going for you. So, hey, I just want to know what got you from being a veteran to, hey, let me go buy, run, and operate a business. What was that
Yeah,
shift like?
it's not a single shift. It's I think a lot of people would tell you this. It's a progression, right? Because I didn't know this was a thing. You kind of find it on accident, um, and that's the beauty of life. You can't. It doesn't make sense going forward, but then looking back, you can connect all the dots, right? And so, I got out at 10 years. I thought that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew I wanted to do something different. I was intrigued by tech because I had experienced how bad government tech is, and I was like, man, I gotta figure out how to do things better. Um, and I got a lucky break, really, getting into Microsoft because I don't have an engineering background. I could not code, and in 2020, Microsoft had just won the Jedi contract, to do Azure Cloud for government. And the kicker is that you have to have a security clearance to do that. And so I was part of the first pilot program that was like, hey, instead of like trying to hire CS students out of top universities and waiting 3-4 years for them to get a clearance that they may or may not get, why don't we just hire veterans who already have the clearance and then teach them how to code? And so I was that guy. So I got into this amazing opportunity to join Microsoft. 6 months crash course, working for them, learning how to code, learning how to develop in the cloud. Became an SRE engineer, just building cloud space, which is amazing. Did that for a couple of years, but then at the same time, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do post military time, and so that's where the MBA came in. I was like, all right, well, I was smart enough to realize that the civilian world is a lot different than the military, and you know I don't know what I want to do. I have a lot of interests, does finance, consulting, general management. Like, what do you want to do with your life? I don't know. Buy real estate. I don't know. So the MBA was fantastic because it allowed me to kind of dabble in a lot of different areas. I learned a lot of, like, you learn a little bit about a lot, and that was great. And like I said, this was before searching was a thing, right? This is before, like, there was no Cody Sanchez, there was none of this stuff. The only thing there was Walker Dyble. His book Buy Then Build was out. Obviously, he wrote that 15 years ago now. And then the HBR guide for buying small businesses, that was out. That was there. And the only opportunities were the HBS, Harvard Business School's annual ETA conference, and Chicago University. They do a joint conference with Kellogg. That one was active, and then there was Stanford. And I don't know if this is the same, but at the time, like, you couldn't go to Stanford unless you were a student. But Harvard and Chicago were wide open. And I was reading through an entrepreneurial finance book during one of my finance classes at NYU Stern, and somewhere buried in like chapter 3, it was like blah 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 SMB multiples 3 through 6, and it just kind of clicked. I was like, wait, people buy these things? Like, how does that even work? And so I read through that book in record time, and Googled it, found the Harvard conference, attended that, found the Chicago conference, attended that. I mean, networked like crazy. Met a lot of searchers who were actively searching. A lot of people who had already done a lot of the traditional search fund route, as well as some self-funded searchers. And man, I just learned everything I possibly could. And I was like, man, this is interesting. This is really cool. And this is all while working at Microsoft, right? And so
Oh
I was
wow.
kind of doing this on the side and realizing that I love tech. Like I really do. I still do it now. Like I don't post about it online because I'm not like an AI guru or anything, but I'm still an engineer. I'm still playing with the tools. I'm still building AI agents. I'm still doing all that stuff. But and I do it because I'm interested. I do it for fun. I do it to improve my own workflow. Like I've got a whole automation workflow now, which is great. Um, but I knew that working a salary was not the right option, And for me, it was because I tell people like you spend a decade in the military where other people are telling you what to do, and then when you get out, you don't want anybody telling you what to do anymore. You know, it's the same thing. It's like you spend a decade of other people telling you where to live, then you want to pick where you're going to live. Like you don't care. I'm not going to move to your job. I'm going to do my job here, like whatever it is. And for me, I was very aware that a job is only stable until you're fired, right? And so even though like in the early like 2020 2021 like it was so easy to get a job in tech, but I was like it seemed so risky, the idea of like staying in a job for 40 years hoping nothing bad happens so that you can retire and maybe be okay. Like I don't come from a rich family, so my family's not okay. Like nobody's got money. And so it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, you have to do something that actually builds some sort of wealth. And at the same time, I wanted to own something. I wanted to I wanted to lead something my own. And I hear that from a lot of veterans. They want to give back to their community. They want to be a leader in their community. They want to own something. They want to, they understand that there's downside, but they also want to own the upside. They want to build something for themselves. And so I had all those competing feelings and stuff. And so I used my time in big tech, to learn a lot, but at the same time to fund my search. And I encourage self-funded searchers to do that. I'm like, don't quit your job, use that as funding for your search. Search on the side. Because I guarantee you, if you do buy a business, like your calendar is not going to get easier. Like you're not going to have more time. So do that now. Avoid the stress that comes from not having money to search and like worrying like, oh, I need to close on something soon because I'm running out of cash. I won't have money for due diligence. I have to replace my salary. Like those are all really bad ways to buy a business. It gets you doing all kinds of things that you wouldn't do normally. And so, yeah, so that's very long-winded, but that's kind of how I got into it. It's like, it's not one big thing. It's a combination of things over years that kind of lead you towards a path where you're like, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense.
I loved it. Essentially, you just forged your path. I mean, there wasn't
Yeah,
a
there it
lot of
is.
resources when you got started. So, hey, props to you. I know my exposure came from growing up in Santa Barbara. I remember my grandpa took me to church. I was 16 years old, and I see all these guys, the older guys in suits, and I'm like, what do you do? Private equity. I was like, that sounds fun. So, hey, so I like what you mentioned. A lot of these guys, they'll quit their job and try to close on
Yeah,
anything, and they're trying to negotiate from a position actually of weakness. They're
yeah,
desperate as opposed to negotiate from a position of strength. A lot of people don't understand as soon as you sign the deal, it's your responsibility now, right? So I want to ask you, should your first deal be bigger or smaller? And what are the pros and cons of each?
yeah. I'll touch on both of those. So I just commented on this on LinkedIn like last week, but um, I in at this point I've interviewed like 35 plus people who have had a business failure after buying, right? And in over 80% of those cases, deal fatigue is a real issue. And you're going to maximize that deal fatigue if you're going into it and you don't have any kind of income. Like a lot of people get, you hear burn the boats. You hear that thrown around a lot, as a way to, force, action. And I get it. I understand the sentiment, but I think it's really the bad way to go because when you look at negotiation, we talk about things like BATNA, your better alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? And if you've got no job and you've got dwindling capital because you're a self-funded searcher, and now you're worried about things like sunk deal costs, which are absolutely going to happen, and then you don't know how long this is going to take, and you have a certain kind of buy box you want to stick to, and you don't want to buy a lemon, which is a very real fear, and it puts you in a place to where you start compromising. And you may think, oh, well, I've been searching 4 months, 6 months. I'm not going to compromise. I got plenty of time. Yeah, well, wait till you're on month 17. It gets tiring. It's a long slog of you digging through the haystack trying to find a needle, thinking, "Oh man, what about that business like back in month 7? Man, that was the one that got away. I'm not going to find one like that again." Because now you're wondering, am I even going to close? You probably told your family you're going to do this. You posted about it online, like, "Hey, I'm searching for a business," and you still haven't found one, and money's dwindling, and you're starting to feel compromised. And now you're like, "All right, well," then you start thinking, "All right, well, there's nothing perfect. I'm going to find good enough." And then that starts leading you down towards like excusing red flags. And I've seen it over and over and over, where people make a bad decision that they normally wouldn't have. And looking back postmortem, they're like, I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe that I skipped my Q of E. I cannot believe that I did not do an operational due diligence on this business. I cannot believe that I trust this seller when they told me XYZ, and I don't know why. Like there's one owner I spoke to who's gonna his story is in my book, and he recounts about how he bought from a seller, and the seller said, you know, excuse me, he had his Q of E done, and he remembers thinking, I hope my Q of E comes back with something negative, so I have an excuse not to buy this business. And the Q of E came back, and it was good. The Q of E was like, yeah, you're fine. I mean, it marked it off a couple percentage points, but it wasn't a big deal. It's like everything looked solid. And he's like, oh, all right, well then I'll move forward. And I'm telling you, like, trust your gut. It's like it's amazing how like when you get to the point of you've been searching for so long, you're like everything inside of you is telling you like yes or no, but you're like you start compromising your feelings, and you look back when you're from a better frame of mind, you're like I cannot believe I made the decisions I made at the time. I do the same thing with my experience. I cannot believe some of the decisions I made when I was searching. Um, but anyway, I'm sorry. What was the second part of the question?
I I actually have a question. Uh, I actually want to know, Jed, your first acquisition. How did that look like? How did you, start? Because obviously you had very less resources, and most of the guys listening to this podcast don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
And I want to know what was your experience with your first deal? How was that?
Yeah, so I started off. I've decided to be a self-funded searcher. I decided I wanted to own my journey on that one. Um, Not sure if I would make that same decision going again if I was to start over, but I raised money from friends and family, people I had served in the Air Force with, people I went to business school with, and ultimately raised about $200,000. So I had a nest egg. And that's not like traditional search where it's like that's my money to go search with. That was like my money to go and get the deal done, like due diligence, get it all done, right? Um, Plus some like whatever personal capital I could bring to the table. And so that's where I was coming from. And so I was originally looking in defense. I was really originally looking for something that was kind of more my space, like defense, maybe with a tech flair, something that I would understand a little bit better. Didn't find anything at the time. And I look back and I'm like, well, I realize now it's because my search was terrible. Like it's you don't know how to search and you're just trying to figure it out. And I was looking at cage codes, I was going through sam.gov, I was trying to find contractors, and it just was not efficient. It was very slow, and I didn't know this at the time, but I wasn't seeing the whole universe of contractors out there, and so I didn't find anything. The ones I did find were way outside of my buy box, and so I started looking around. I'm like, all right, well, what else should I be looking at? And home services is always interesting, and so ultimately I started looking at landscaping. For a couple of reasons. One, because no one else was looking there, and two, because I knew that I had a classmate actually who worked on the IPO for Brightview, and so I was like, okay, well, I know that this is an industry that has been rolled up in the past, and I know that there's a lot of there's it's a very diverse industry. So it's like all the tons of small businesses under 5 million, a ton over 30, and very few in between, right? It's very much at the bottom or at the top, very little middle. And it's also kind of like when you realize that it's like when you realize you want to buy a car, like you realize, oh, I'm going to buy a Jeep, and then you start seeing Jeeps everywhere. It's the same thing when you're going to buy a business. You decide you're going to buy a business, and then you start looking around, and like everything looks like it's for sale, right? And so, with my first acquisition, I talked with lots of owners. I mean, probably over 300 at this point, and ultimately had I don't remember exactly. It was either 5 or 7 LOIs out the door, and 2 were accepted, 2 were closed. Well, 3 were accepted, 2 were closed. And my very first acquisition was with a small landscaping company in Southern California, and I really lucked out. I found this guy. He was the owner, wonderful individual in his 70s, and uh, he owned this small landscaping company, and it was just him, a small admin office, and then a team. and they had been in business for like 40 years. And I asked him, because we met randomly, and I asked him, I was like, why have you not decided to sell? And he said, I'd planned to sell before the pandemic, but then everything got super busy after the pandemic, and then he just doesn't have time for any of that. And so this business was it was a point to where like the finances were not audible because he didn't have actual accounting. Like he just put everything into a business checking account, which is fine. It was really surprising at the time how mismanaged finance can be in small business. But now I've seen enough after that to where I realized that like that's really kind of like par for the course. Really messy accounting, not having accounting, like those are pretty standard things for businesses 5 million and under. Um, and so my thought was, I started talking to him. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to buy this business. I don't know if this business is even financeable because of the way the accounting systems are. But here's what I do know. I do know that I'm going to keep looking. But in the meantime, how about I come in and help the business out for a little while, And that was an arrangement we came to. We're like, hey, I'm going to come in. I'm going to help the business because I realized like I'd never owned a business before. Like you have all this theory about like what you could do, but you've never done it. And so I'm like, how about I come in? How about I help out? And we'll see how that works out. And it worked out well. I got in there. I created a CRM. I started emailing customers, started doing some go-to-market stuff, started doing some digital ads, and revenue grew like 33% within like the first 4 months. And I was like, well, shit, all right, that's the thing. Like you really can like fix a few things and drive some revenue. And so we moved from there and decided to go ahead and close the acquisition. So that was a really interesting opportunity because a lot of people don't get the chance to like work in a business that they're going to acquire, especially the first one. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that.
I
um
got a follow-up question for you in that.
yeah.
These people that you've interviewed that have a failure post-acquisition, how many of them had or did not have experience of running that type of business prior to buying
Yeah,
it?
almost all of them were buying outside their industry. And
There you
that's a
go.
really good point too, because that's one of the things that I come back to. Because, like I just said, I bought outside my industry. My background was in tech and in defense, and I bought a landscaping company where I knew nothing, and I didn't. And it's a licensed industry too, so I had to go get a license. And there's all these barriers, right? And so, um, you do hear plenty of stories of people who buy out, outside of an industry, and they end up doing okay. But what I've come to find is that there are two massive risks. Like once you buy, and now you're the owner, there's two massive risks. One of them is called I call the ownership learning curve, right? And that is you've never been an owner. Now you own this business. The pros and the cons. You also own the debt that you took out for it, and so you're on the hook. And it's going to take some time for you to learn how to be an owner. And by that, I mean, learn how to manage your employees, learn when it's time to hire, when it's time to fire, learn when it's time to negotiate with vendors, when it's time to like, suck up your pride and be quiet. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to just EQ leadership, when it comes to running a
Mhm.
business that you simply don't understand. And I tell people it's kind of like when people used to ask me what it's like to be in the Air Force. And I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, here's the uniform. I went to basic. Here's the deployments. This is what Afghanistan looks like. But the truth is, you have no idea what I'm talking about because you've never been
Yeah.
there. It's more than just a job. It's an environment. It's a community. And business owners will tell you that if you've never owned a business, then you have no idea. You can't possibly understand what I'm talking about. You can't possibly understand what it's like to lay awake at night wondering if payroll is going to clear, right?
Yeah.
Wondering if your third biggest customer is going to leave you, which mine did. Like all these things like that are stress. And that learning curve could take 6 months. It could take 2 years. And I don't know how long that's going to take for you. The second thing, though, and getting back to the original point of the question, though, the second thing is that you know, is the what I call the rolling up your sleeves test. When you get in the business, especially if you're buying as a self-funded searcher, if you're buying 5 million enterprise value or under, I don't care what you want to call yourself. You're an owner operator. You can call yourself CEO all day long, but you're an owner operator, and you have to be able to roll up your sleeves and get in the business and do the job. Especially if you're buying something that's licensed, if it's a home services business, because there's so many risks though. Like one, what happens when you have to be on the job and you have to actually help out and make it work, right? How long is it going to take you to learn the job, to roll up your sleeves and do it? Now you don't have to be the best, and you're not going to be because you're outside the industry. But how long until you can do the work? How long until you have the license and you're not like taking the risk of someone else holding your license? That's a big one. So how long is that going to take? That's a real problem. And even if you're I don't want to rant on this too much.
You can
I
go
just
on
know
and
that
on and
like
on. I'm telling you. Hey, people don't understand that. Let me
people don't
reference a
understand it.
personal
No.
let me
Trust
reference
me,
a
we
personal
understand you.
experience. I ran a diesel mechanic shop for the past 2 years. I grew top line revenue by about $1 million, and I had to negotiate about $400,000 worth of bad debt. You see things differently from because I was a financial analyst. You see 5,000, 10,000, $50,000 on a P&L. It's just numbers to you.
Yeah.
When you're actually running that business and you got to pay $5,000, that is a totally different story because you got to figure out how
Yep.
you come up with that. People do not understand that. The thing that changes is you're in the driver's seat and now you face stress. So what I always tell people is there's two sides to running a business. You got management and you got growth. And it's very difficult to do both. You're either
Yep.
managing the company or you're growing the company. And like you stated, the smaller the business is, the more of a job it is. Um,
Absolutely.
I want to get your opinion on this. We actually have a live deal. I want to run through you very quickly. Tell me if it's a
Hey,
yay
before
or
we jump to
nay.
that, I remember
Hmm.
now you asked me if first time buyers should go small or big.
Yeah,
They should go
small
big.
or big? Yes,
Absolutely. You should go big.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It,
And a lot of people think they should go small because they think it's safer.
it's
And I
or
always tell
easier.
them it's like there's a lot
it
of things I
doesn't
could talk
matter.
about this, but I'll just remind people like first and foremost, if you're going self-fund and you're going to go SBA, let's assume you're buying 5 million or under, right? Let's just
Yes.
assume that. All right. So in this space, you have business number one, which is a $1 million business. You got business number two, that's a $4 million business, right? And you're going to take out SBA debt and a personal guarantee for both of them, right? If one of those businesses, if you let's say you own either one, if you own it and it goes under and it goes bankrupt and now you're on the hook for the personal guarantee, it doesn't matter if you're 1 million in the hole or 4. You can't pay that either way, right? So the risk to you as a searcher is the same.
It's
It is the same.
yeah.
Tell
It is
them the
bankruptcy.
truth, man.
It is the same. However, we also know that the bigger businesses, the less risky that business is for a
Yes.
multitude of reasons. One, you have more
Yes.
customers, you have got more revenue diversity,
True.
you've probably got more employees, you've got a couple managers, you've got all kinds of things that could be better off to help you survive those headwinds that are going to come because they are going to
Right.
come. And so if you're actually the first time buyer, like you need to realize that like smaller is not safer, smaller is not easier, smaller is actually 10 times harder and
Yep.
10 times riskier. Your best
Yep.
bet is to save up as much money as you can and bring in investors, as many as you can. Keep your debt service coverage ratio over 2. Like I would recommend keeping that debt as low as
Yep.
possible.
Yep.
Like equity, like don't freak out about your equity. Give it away. Get some cash. All right.
Yes.
Because the whole point of acquisition number one is not to become a millionaire. It's simply not to fail and be broke. That's all it is.
There you go.
Because I guarantee, like, if you can just win acquisition one and make it 5 years through acquisition one, you're going to learn everything you need to know about whether you want to go hold co, you want to go roll up, you want to own this forever, you want to flip it to somebody else. Like, you're going to learn everything you need to know just running that business. So prove that you can run the first business. All right. And give yourself the best chance to do that. The best way to do that, get as close to that 5 million as possible. Buy something that you actually understand. That's like we said, like it doesn't need to be your industry, but it needs to be tangential to that. Like if
Yeah.
you came from tech, buy an MSP. Like do something like that, right? Like try to stay as close to your sweet
Roots.
spot as possible.
Mhm.
I think that's very well said. I think the industry that you come from should add advantage to the industry that you're going to
Yes.
get in. And I come from the tech background as well, tech and business. I ran 3 companies. I'm on my 4th one right now. And I can tell you, it's a living hell. I don't want to wake up. I wake up screaming, like because we haven't found a solution, right? It's the days are not getting better, they get harder. Some days are good, most of the days are bad.
Yeah.
And most founders or owners or first time owners don't realize what it takes. They burn out real quick. My first business, I mean, thank God it went real good, but COVID killed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like out of business within the next day and I didn't know what to do. I had to fire all my employees. I had to, you know, gather all my resources, call bankruptcy.
Man,
I had to move on to a next plan.
that's
And
crazy.
trust me, it was crazy. And one thing led to another, and it's just the fact that you're not going to give up, because it's you get a million reasons to give up and say I can't do this, but pushing forward and using your previous experience for the next one is what's more important. And very well said. Thank you, Jed. That just made me so happy right now.
Good. All right.
Yeah, Jed is just providing gems. Hey, let me run this deal through you very quickly. Let's see
Yep.
what your thoughts on are. So this is a trailer repair company, started in 1945, been in the market for a while. They're doing 7.2 million revenue. The owner, he's looking to retire, spend time with his grandkids, only works 10 hours a month. Currently, his daughter's
Wow.
running admin. Her husband is running operations. He's VP of operations. Uh, their SDE is 905K. EBITDA is about 754 after you
Okay.
take into account the fact to hire somebody to run operations. They got two locations. They own the property on both. We're going to lease it. 65% of revenue comes from labor, 33% comes from parts. They got 32 employees, six managers,
Okay.
23 mechanics, and three salespeople. Uh, Pretty good. What do
Yeah.
you think about that? What do you see?
The very first thing I see is you got a guy who's retiring, which is great.
Yeah.
But his and I'm going to mess with the relationships, but his
Hmm.
daughter and his son-in-law sounds like they're both working in the business.
Hmm.
So question number one, why are they not buying it?
Yeah.
That's question number one.
I like that. I thought the
Um,
same.
yeah, that's the main question. Why are they not buying it? Because the thing I see here is that if you buy it, then are they staying? Are they going? They own the property.
Hmm.
That's going to be
Hmm.
an issue. Like, is that going to be a part of the deal?
Right.
If they do go, where are they? Like, are they moving away? Are they getting different jobs? Like, there's a lot of red tape there. I like
Mm.
the very first thing I look at when I look at a deal is I'm looking at the seller,
Mm.
because the seller is the biggest risk about anything, hands down, like
Right.
way bigger than finance risk. The seller is the biggest risk because the seller will make or break the deal. And but what I mean is, um, you need to become a really good judge of the seller's character. Are they somebody who is do they have integrity? Do they run their business with integrity? Are they honest and looking towards a actual exit? Is that are they really looking for the best person to buy that business? Um, or are they not? And you have to really determine that. And there's a lot of ways you can try to go about doing that. But my
Mm.
first question would be like, well, why is your daughter and your son-in-law not buying this business? Because if he sells to you, and they're going to be pretty upset, I would imagine. Like, so like they're not running it. It's not their
Right.
family anymore. But I mean, it's kind of hard to be VP of operations or president of the company, and your father sold it to somebody else, and now you don't even own it. Now you're
Right.
that's a huge culture change. And people really, and I did this too. Like,
Hmm.
we all drastically discount culture in small businesses,
Thank you.
and
Talk
culture
about
is
that.
100 times more important than finances.
It
Because
is.
here, I'll talk about that right now. So, um, business is not real estate. I see this all the time in social media. Like, oh, you can buy, a portfolio of real estate. You can buy a portfolio of
Right.
small businesses. No, no,
Right.
it is not the same thing. Small business is the most illiquid, risky asset in America. All right. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it means it's a different kind of risk perspective. At least in
Right.
real estate, if you buy something, let's say you buy a multi-unit apartment building, and you leverage it up, and the hope is you're going to flip it, in like 5 or 6 years. However, if you fail and you run and you have to go through bankruptcy, at least there's property, at least there's a building, there's some assets there. Like, that's
Sure.
why it's so easy to lend on real estate, because there's some physical
Mhm.
asset there. There
Mhm.
is no physical asset with a business. Even
Nice
the most
intangibles.
asset intensive
Mhm.
business like landscaping with lots of equipment, right? Machinery, manufacturing, all that stuff. The machinery is always, it's less than 5% of the tangible value of the business. And the reason being is because it doesn't matter how expensive the machinery is. A business value is developed by a group of people who come together to create something that is exponentially more valuable than any one of them could do on their own. That's a business, right? And what that means is that's culture, right? That means there's people working together. The culture of that business is incredibly important. Everyone has to be able to work together. There can't be this like toxic sideshow. There can't be, these divisions within the business. If you find that, run for the hills. And what I'll say on that is, and the reason I started with the seller is because small businesses are a direct reflection of the owner, bar none. America allows small business owners to run businesses
Yep.
much like Caesar ran Rome. Like, you are God,
Yep.
Yeah.
right? You can mark off whatever you want for taxes. You get to run the show. You can fire people. You can hire people. Like, we don't have to, like,
Yep.
labor laws are just like they're minimal. Like, you can do all kinds of things, and our tax system is set up in a way to incentivize small business owners to run all their expenses through the business. So they
Right.
are dictators in the best sense of the word,
Yes.
right? And that's
Yep.
okay, because just like in a command and control structure in the military, you do need someone in charge, and that's fine.
Right.
Like, it works. That said, the business will reflect the owner. If the owner treats their people with dignity and respect, if they pay their vendors on time, if they treat their customers like valued members of their ecosystem, if they value their place in the community, like if they do those things, then the business will reflect that. They'll have
Thank
good
you.
culture. Now, their
Thank you.
accounting system may be crap, right?
Right.
Like, the business will also reflect their deficiencies. Like, if they're not good at
Mhm.
finance, then the finance is going to look bad. If they're not a salesman, then the sales is going to look
Yeah.
bad. Like, whatever they're bad at is going to be bad in the business. That doesn't mean that person, the owner, the seller, that doesn't mean that they're someone you don't want to do a deal with. What that means is,
Mhm.
like, that's just a reflection of their weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
What you want to watch out for is a seller who's a raging narcissist, a seller who is a criminal, a seller who is somebody who is constantly trying to, sees everything as a zero sum opportunity. Like, they're screwing over their customers. They sell things that are bad. They're doing outright fraud. Like, if
Yeah.
other people in the space, they're like, oh, I wouldn't work with XYZ seller because
Hmm.
they're a real loser. They didn't pay their vendors. They do XYZ,
Mm.
like all. And here's the thing, like, it's not that hard to find out, because in most of these industries, they're pretty close knit. Like,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
go to a local city or a local community,
Mhm.
um and let's say you're looking at HVAC companies, everybody knows each other. The owners know each other. The employees absolutely know each other, because if they need another job, like, I've got a cousin that works over, this guy's HVAC company. I got a brother that works over that HVAC company. Like,
Mhm.
they've bounced
Yeah.
around a few times. That's how
Yeah.
services businesses work. They all know each other, and so your
Mhm.
reputation travels. And so the best way to find out is, like, you got to figure out the reputation of that seller. You got to figure out, is this somebody you actually want to do a deal with, right?
I love
And
it.
integrity is number one. And then as you work backwards from that, I'm like, all right, well, I want to assess the seller, and then I really need to understand the dynamics of the business when it comes to the daughter and the son-in-law working in the business. Because to me, that's going to be a big red flag right off the bat. Like, I would need to spend a lot of time with the family, and really, they would have to win me over, in the sense that, like, they really do want to see, like, the seller really does want to sell. That the daughter and the son-in-law, maybe they want to move on and do something else, or maybe they want to stay, and and you are able to build that relationship. Like, but it is a risk, because let's say everything works out perfectly. Let's say the seller is an
Right.
upstanding person and they leave. Let's say the daughter and son-in-law want to stay and they want to help run the business, and you get along with them really great. Well, what happens if you have a falling out? It's going to be really, really messy. And so, yeah, that's the
Thank
first
you.
thing to
And
think about. I'm
and
not
to
worried about the
expand on
finance.
that, yeah, yeah, no, a lot of people are like, hey, dig in the numbers, dig in the numbers. But at the end of the day, with small businesses, is dig into the people. These are
Yeah,
relationship
forget the
driven
numbers, man.
businesses.
Forget the numbers. The numbers have to match for the leverage buyout to work. Like, we all
Yeah.
Right.
know that. All right.
Yeah.
And that's just that's table stakes, right? That's it. Like, if you tell me this is your finances, and I'm going to believe you at face value because you gave it to me, I'm going to give you an LOI. And then the moment you sign the LOI, I'm going to spend 2 weeks on my own looking through your finances. And if I see any big red flags that I think are deal killers, I'm out.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then I'm bringing in a Q of E that I really know, like, and trust. I'm going to give a ton of money. And he's going to dig through all your stuff. And he's going to tell me whether you're full of crap or not.
Yeah.
And if that's okay, then we're good. I'm not worried about the finances. I'm worried about the culture.
Yes, yes. Hey, Jed, very quickly, and I want to share this advice with everybody. If you're looking at a small business, I would just skip the P&L, go straight to the tax returns. I've analyzed so many companies where the P&Ls are perfectly crafted to showcase what they want to showcase, and you look at the tax returns and it tells a different story, especially because, they're liable for it. You report something to the IRS and it's not true, and you're going to get a knock on the door. Now, with this last segment of the episode, what I want to do is just rapid questions back and forth.
Yeah.
Is that fine with you? Perfect.
Yeah. I'll try to keep my
What's
responses muted.
what's the best type of business to buy starting out? Product-based, tech-based, service-based, and why?
Depends on your background. If you spend your background in plumbing, then buy a service-based business. If you're coming from tech, buy something in tech or product. And I mean, I would love to stay closer to tech as much as possible, because
Yeah.
it's nice when the margins are bigger. Like,
Right.
low margins suck. Like, they
Yeah.
really do.
Yep. They do. Okay. Well, if you want to expand a service-based company, what's the best approach? In my opinion, I'd franchise it if you implement the proper systems. What do you think?
That is an option. I would probably go with, if I'm expanding my service-based business, I would probably go through
Yes.
acquisition. Yeah, I would want to grow organically in my market. And then when I'm looking to expand, I would look for add-on acquisitions. That's probably
What do you
the
think
way I
about
would
a
go.
franchise through acquisitions? Instead of starting new locations, you're buying them and implementing your prior systems.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, because I mean
Now,
that's what I would be doing. I'd buy out competitors in places I
yeah.
want to be in, and then
exactly.
basically bolt them into my brand.
What do you
Yep.
think about the idea of becoming a one-stop shop? I mean, if you're already doing roof repair, why not offer plumbing? Why not offer electrical? What do you think
Because
about
they're
that?
really, really, really hard. Like it's nice to think, oh well, what if I had a company that did everything? Like I'm a full home service. Like you hire me,
Right.
I'm gonna take care of all your stuff, your plumbing, your electric, your landscaping, your backyard. Like I'll even come by and walk your dog for you. The reason that you don't see companies doing that is because it's really hard. Like they're all
Mm,
licensed industries. So like, are you personally gonna go get a plumbing license, an HVAC license, a landscaping license? Like you're gonna get all those licenses just
I
for
don't think
yourself,
so.
and then you're gonna run, and then you're gonna hire out, workers and all. Like it's um contract service companies are not run like that for a lot of reasons. Um, the best thing you can do is pick one thing that you can be really, really good at and go beat everybody else at that. That way you can
I
drive your
love it.
margin.
I love it. What are three things that make a company sellable?
Three things that make a company sellable. Um, Number one, a management in place. You have to have the owner moved out of that company as much as possible. You're not going to find that a lot in SBA level businesses. That said, again, that brings up the owner operator system.
Right.
That's how you create value, though. So, like, but if we're just talking holistically, um,
Mm.
yeah, you want the owner moved out of it as much as possible. You want management in place, and that doesn't mean like one GM replace the owner. I mean, I want a president. I want a fractional CFO. Like
Yeah,
I want some field managers in there. Like I want some sort of management layer. So that's number one. Number two, systems. So if you've documented your systems, like that's a big one. Almost nobody does it.
SOPs.
Almost
Hmm.
nobody does it. So if I walk in
Yep.
your business and I say, "Hey, how does this business work?" You've got SOPs and you've got documented systems of everything that happens from the moment you go to market to where a customer buys, where every dollar flows all the way through your business, all the way through expense. That
Yep.
is a sellable business. Like, tell me how your business works. That's it. And then number three, um, either be in a growing sector or be in a sector that's at least not dying. So
I love it.
if you're in a growing sector, then all you have to do is, you can be middle of the pack and you're going to grow, whatever the percentage is for that industry. That's great. And then if all you have to do is just be a little bit better. um, if you're in an industry that's kind of like, standard, fully matured, like 2-3% growth every year, then that's fine too, because that's the whole point of an LBO, a leverage buyout. You're going to buy and
Yeah.
the cash flow is going to pay off the loan. Now you're doing pretty good. But just avoid shrinking industries, avoid distress. Like I talk to a lot of searchers who think that they find a business that is declining and they think, oh, I could get a good deal on this. No, friend, that is not a good deal. That is not a good deal. Distressed buyouts are a very, very specific niche, subsector of
Yeah.
acquisition. It's very
Yeah.
Right.
difficult to turn those around. And as a
Hmm.
first-time buyer, you should be running for the hills from those. So
Yeah.
stay
I
away
love
from
it.
distressed acquisitions.
Those deals are only for experienced business owners who actually are able to identify the problem in the system. And it's only for them, also the ones who have the resources to fulfill them before they even
Yep.
buy it.
No, you're exactly right. You have to have the resources to back it up because you're losing money. So where's
Right.
the money to run the business if you're losing money? That's problem number
Yeah.
one. And then you bought it, so there's a leverage buyout, so you got debt on top of it. And then the second issue is, like we said before, about how the ownership learning curve. You need an owner who
Right.
knows what they're doing so they can step in
Right.
on day one, not be overwhelmed and say, all right, we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to do it right now. I know I'm right.
Right.
You're wrong. I'm taking over like the dictator of this business, and I'm going to lay off these
Exactly.
people. I'm going to bring in these people. Like you have to be quick. You have to
Yeah.
be a
Hmm.
surgeon. And a first-time buyer is not a surgeon. They're thinking about medical school.
Right.
It's a completely different skill set.
Jed,
I agree.
on market or off market deals and why?
Both, both. There's always this back and forth about like, oh, on market versus off market. I'm looking for a good deal. I'm looking for a great business at a good price. That's like Charlie
I
Munger
like
used to
it.
say. I'm not looking
I
for
like
a good business at a great price. I'm looking for a great business at a good price. And so
Right.
if you bring a great business at a good price to market and I can compete on that, absolutely. Let's go. But at the same time, like I'm looking off market too, because we also know that 9 out of 10 businesses will never go on market. And
Yep.
so the thing is that most people don't know how to search off market. They just don't.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and shameless plug. I have a challenge. It's the Start Searching Challenge. I teach people how to actually search, and that's part of it. Though it's like I really think you need to approach it from building out your broker network first, building out
Yeah.
your on-market network first, right?
Yeah.
Because once you do that and people know, like, and trust you, and you've qualified yourself as a qualified buyer, now
Yeah.
you've got leverage. Now you've got people who have an incentive to give you deals that they think you might be interested in because they know that you're serious and you may buy. That's step
Yeah.
number one, right? So don't skip on market. That's just stupid. Lots of businesses buy and sell on market. But then once you've built out the leverage, now you can dive into proprietary search, because proprietary search is the proverbial needle in a haystack. And it could
Yeah.
take 3 months, it could take 30 years, it could take a while, right?
Mhm.
And so it doesn't make any sense to dive into proprietary search if you've not built out the leverage for brokerage first. Build out the broker leverage, then dive into proprietary search. That way you've got both of those churning at the same time and you're not searching for years on end.
Jed, you're freaking awesome. I want to spend the last minutes we have just talking about you. Sunset AI, what is it?
That is a project I'm working on right now. Uh, Okay, so I haven't actually talked about this publicly. I wasn't expecting to do that, but here I
Oh
am.
man.
Put it on LinkedIn. So here we go. All right, so a couple of things. One, it started off as a AI automation company focused on small business owners. So there's a lot of things that have changed in the marketplace, and you do see AI automation companies kind of picking up right now, and for good reason. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
Because it is a huge lever in your business. Um, so I actually know what I'm talking about with that, and so I started spinning up an AI automation company. I've helped 5 clients at this point, still kind of getting it under my feet, trying to make sure I've got some good client reviews on that one, and also make sure that the processes make sense and they work. And so it's a well-oiled machine before I
Yeah.
start like publicly advertising for it. But at this point, especially for service-based businesses, if your business isn't in the cloud and it's not connected through direct automations, and I don't mean just a Zapier connection, if you don't have actual workflows in place, then you're falling behind in a massive way, like just a mass. It's hard for me to
Correct.
quantify how fast you're falling behind. And I go as far as to say, like, SaaS is dead at this point, because if you're a service-based business and you're using SaaS, like you're using like Service Titan, I'll pick on them because they're so big, right? If you're using
Mhm.
Service Titan, you are going to fall behind so fast, because the whole idea of Service Titan is we're going to put your whole business in one gigantic application. But there's
Yeah.
so many fault points. The biggest one being that you have to wait for Service Titan to actually integrate and make changes in their software that actually impact your business. Where right now, all of those tools are available. If you simply had the time and somebody who knew how to build that for you. I really do think that going forward, most large SaaS platforms are useless. I think the goal now is to start off, go cloud first, and then build an AI enabled automation infrastructure, kind of like how microservices destroyed traditional monoliths. And Manuel, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. You're saying, like, yeah,
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 I know exactly
because these
talking
tools,
about.
they're changing so fast and they're so good. Like, you want to have that kind of microservice approach to where everything's working together. That way when the new tool comes out, I don't have to wait for Service Titan to update their
Correct.
software 3
That is
years from
true.
now, when
That
I
is
can
true.
simply go in there and make that change today. Like, it's amazing the kind
And
of
you're
leverage you can
building
put
these
to the small businesses.
automations, and
Yes.
are they tailored to these business owners' needs?
So right now, yes, like, so this is what I'm actually working on. So I am
Yeah.
not trying to start an agency. I'm not trying to say, like, I'm not trying to go to every single business owner like, hey, I'm going to work on your specific problem, because
Yeah.
that's something I can leverage, right?
Right.
But what I am doing is I'm identifying a few key problems, building like templates to solve those
Mhm.
problems with the best tools available, and then applying those to businesses that can use them. That way,
Correct.
if you're telling me, like, okay, so lead generation is a big problem. So if I can build out a full lead generation funnel using these types of microservices, AI enabled software, like, that way we can reach out to lots of customers. We're doing lots of follow up. We're putting them in a dynamic CRM. We're doing it the right way, and at the same time cutting out tons of man hours. If we can do
Yeah.
that and significantly drive revenue, then I can take that and I can copy and paste it to another business that has the same problem, and 90% of it's the same. Well, now we're winning. That's what I'm trying to do, right?
I love
Jed,
it.
Jed, this is funny because I do the same thing in healthcare
Yeah.
for doctors because they do not know anything about this, and the ecosystem, the softwares, the SaaS that they're using are so outdated. They're
It's
like
bad.
built 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and they lose so much money. The insurance companies are cutting heads, and doctors have to get paid, so they go to the patients, and that's why healthcare is so bad.
Yeah. I mean, think
So
about it. Like, it's so hard just to get small businesses to, do pay-per-click advertising like Facebook or
Yep.
Meta ads or like
Hmm.
YouTube ads or stuff like that. Like it blows my mind that every business doesn't have a YouTube channel where they're just showing their customers what they do every day.
Exactly.
That alone, that we've known that for a decade, and people still don't do it. But at this point, like Google just had their VO3 come out. Like you don't have to
Right.
Oh
film this
my God.
stuff anymore. You can just create the
Right.
video and put it
They,
on
we
Instagram. Like,
Valentino and I were
Jed,
just talking about
lastly,
that the other day, and we were like, it is a game changer because all these small other companies that you could just write a prompt and create a video,
yep,
Google just killed all of them.
yeah,
They're gone.
it's over. And these things are changing
Jed,
so fast. Like you can't. That's why the monolith doesn't work. You have to have lots of little systems you can plug in and out.
absolutely. Jed, very quickly, can people hire you and where can they find you, man?
Yes. Okay. So as of right now, Sunset AI is not live, so no, you can't hire me for that. But if you are interested, right now I'm working with a select group of small business owners. So shoot me an email and tell me that you're interested in that, and then I'll follow up with you, and we'll see if
What
it's a good
about
fit.
consulting for M&A? Are you doing that for people if somebody's like, "Hey, I need your
No.
help"? No.
No, I'm not doing that. But here
Oh
is what I
wow.
am doing. So this is actually a really good spot. So here is what I'm doing. I've kind
Yeah.
of stepped away from social media the last almost 2 months now
Hmm.
because I started off the year thinking, okay, I'm going to help as many searchers as possible, and like James Clear says, you fall to the level of your systems, and I had no
Yeah.
systems. And so what happened was my calendar just filled up with one-on-ones, and before I knew it, I had no time for anything. Um, and so I had to take a big step back, and I've had to do the way I do things. So here's how I do things going forward. Once a
Uh-huh.
month, I do I do the Start Searching Challenge. It is a 1 week challenge. It's 2 hours a day, and it's 5 days a week. It's 5 days for 1 week every month, right? And so in that challenge, the whole point is to take you from zero to searcher in 5 days.
Yeah.
So how to be a qualified buyer, how to build out your broker network, how to do proprietary search in a real way, how to build your tech stack so that you're actually doing it the right way. Like, yeah, it's designed to take you from scrolling biz by sell to actually knowing how to search and taking action on that search. That's the whole
I love
point.
it.
So I do that once a month, and then for people who finish the Start Searching Challenge, if they want to work with me, they have the opportunity then to join the Searcher School community, where they can actually work with me. And I do a lot of coaching in there, and usually it's like you get direct coaching from me like once a month or twice a month or something. Like that's the minimum,
Hmm.
and I do a lot
Mhm.
more than that. But I just try to level set right off the bat. But at that point,
Right.
if you're in the community, then we do things like due diligence, we do negotiation tactics, we do all kinds of stuff, seller work. But that way, I can actually provide a lot of value to people who are like really serious about moving forward and they want to do that. So that's about as far as I'm going right now with M&A consulting.
I love it. Hey guys, if you need somebody who's an expert in this field, you got this man right here. I started years ago and everybody just told me the numbers, the numbers, the numbers, the numbers, but he touches on what actually matters. It's the people, the processes, the systems. So, hey Jed, we're gonna put your information. I appreciate you so much for being a part of this episode. Hopefully I can steal you for episode 2. I know people are gonna reach out to
Definitely.
me about that. But I love it, man. Thank you. And thank you for your
All right.
service.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to that episode number 2.
You have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Jed. Bye.